So I was working in anxiety for about 10 years, and I originally went to school for nutrition, holistic nutrition, and thought that that was going to be it, right? Like, it's biochemically, we're gonna drink green juice and take supplements and eat better, and then everything is gonna be better. And of course, and I kept reading about the vagus nerve. Just once you start learning about the vagus nerve, everything changes, right? Yeah. And so, starting to learn about the polyvagal theory, and again, in school, we learned about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And it was, you're either in fight or flight or you're in rest and digest. And I mean, once you learn about the dorsal state, I've been in dorsal my entire life, I think. And I know so many of my clients have said the same thing. And especially with our anxiety kind of clientele, most of them are sort of in this functional state of freeze all the time, and then just go up into sympathetic and back, and it's this kind of constant. They don't know safety. They don't know ventral, and so it was a real eye-opening for my work, and then of course learning about it in context to my son. And he at that point was nonverbal, and wasn't hardly making any sounds at all. He was verbal until about 2, like so many autistic kids. He regressed after he had gotten a bad infection and had to get some lung x-rays where they had to strap him down. And in the book, they use that as an example of something that can put these kiddos into this dorsal state, right? And as soon as I read that, I thought, well, what is this SSP? What is this training that I need to learn more about this? And so that's how I sort of started going into that. And then over the years with my son and his success, I've slowly been transitioning my business to work more in that realm. So,
that's a fascinating one, isn't it? These, what is a traumatic event?
Yes.
How does it affect our nervous system afterwards? And I too was taken into the sort of the nervous system. Again, looking, because I'm trying to work out how to help my autistic daughter functioning, and understanding the nervous system is, you realize that it's governing everything. How do we affect it is the next question. How do we bring it into, like you say, the ventral state? And my daughter too also had some quite traumatizing, a lot of traumatizing medical interventions as well. Another thing that got me interested in the nervous system was realizing that you can't learn if you're stressed, and you can't digest properly if you're stressed. And so that was a big motivator to keep, it's important to keep a nervous system in that safe state, or that kind of self-esteem, keep her feeling happy, keep her feeling okay in the world. That became my big motivator. And then when I heard Dr. Porges talking about his safe and sound protocol, that made a lot of sense. We had
what they say with autism, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism, because everyone is different on the spectrum, and they just have similar challenges. Or when we're talking about sensory information, they say an average neurodivergent takes in about 42% more sensory information than a neurotypical. So that's a lot for the nervous system to try to deal with. So they are going to have nervous systems that are more sensitive. They are going to have more reactive stress responses. But how that kind of comes out for them is a little bit different. So, when you think about things that happen when we are in the dorsal vagal state, and how it can mimic so many of the symptoms that many of our autistic kiddos have, right? Difficulty holding eye contact. Our society tends to think that is more of a personality thing or a confidence issue, when it's uncomfortable to do that for these kiddos. And that's often because they're in this dorsal state. Because, again, thinking about animals in the wild, that's not always safe, looking at another animal, right? And this is, one of the first symptoms they often look for when they're diagnosing kids, right? not being able to speak. A lot of our kiddos are nonverbal, and obviously it's not all the cases, but in some cases, and in Sam's case, he was in dorsal at such a young age, it affected his ability to be able to hear higher frequency tones, and so he wasn't able to mimic language.
Oh, wow.
Which is something that we know happens in this dorsal state. Our inner ears actually change, right? So that we're tuned into the more dangerous sounds, like roaring and stomping and things. It's just how our bodies work. And if that happens as an adult, it's a completely different experience than if it happens to a child that's learning how to be able to mimic language. And so in his case, he couldn't mimic a lot of the sounds, and he couldn't hear us properly, even though he passed all his hearing tests.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. When we're in dorsal, we read facial cues incorrectly. We have access to, or we don't have access to, a lot of those feelings like play and safety and joy. And
I know that people can be in dorsal and sympathetic.
Yes.
If you were just to be in dorsal, you would be like flat and no energy, and definitely be kind of not wanting to interact with the world. But, and you kind of think that that's a normal, like just tiredness, but there's a different sensation to dorsal vagal that's really yuck. Isn't it? It's like falling into your, I call it falling into your boots. And I think it's really important people understand dorsal vagal isn't just like suddenly feeling tired, although you do feel tired, you feel like, bleh. But, and it's a deep survival reaction. So even though you feel flat, the body is sending so many alarm signals to your brain at the same time. And interestingly, in terms of co-regulation, if somebody else has dropped into dorsal vagal, everybody in the environment detects it because it's this survival message.
Right.
So in terms of a parent or anyone, they need to be quite aware of dorsal vagal, because it will send alarm bells into the other person's system, and unless it's kind of noticed as to what it is, there will just be a feeling of like, this isn't good.
Something's wrong.
This isn't good.
We're
I don't
not
like
safe.
this situation. They won't identify what it is. I'm not enjoying this. I need to get away. And that may be like, I don't like being with my child. Because if that child's in dorsal vagal, it's naturally not co-regulating for the carer either. And
when we think about sympathetic activation, and as you were just stating, it's like it's not black and white. It's just this state, this state, this state, and this is exactly what happens in each state. We have blended states, like you said. No state is bad. No state is good. It's not. We can't live in ventral all the time. That wouldn't be safe for us. Every state has a purpose, and with the goal being that we can go in and out of states easier, right? Where the problems happen is when we get stuck in some of those states and lose the ability to access some of these other ones. But with sympathetic especially, I know a lot of people view that as like the bad state, right? We don't want to be in sympathetic. But we would be in a sympathetic blended state right now because we're talking and we're teaching and we're learning and we're actively doing something, right? Probably in a ventral state because there's the feeling of safety too, right? This is a safe conversation and place. So with kiddos, I tend to describe it like, I use, when I'm talking about anxiety, like a ladder. But we can definitely think of it just as like a wave too of like low sympathetic, moderate sympathetic, high sympathetic. And those higher levels of sympathetic is where we would be in fight or flight. Lower levels of sympathetic, maybe you're grocery shopping and you're just actively doing something, or you're exercising. And when we think about our kiddos that have sensory issues, we want to, the way that is helpful for me is thinking of sensory input being things that are activating and taking us up that ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get to a place of whether you want to call it a meltdown, a panic attack, a fight or flight response, stress response, where we're having these more like these bigger outbursts, these behaviors, they've gone up that ladder. It's not, it's, I shouldn't say it doesn't all the time, it's not 100% rule, but it doesn't usually go from to nothing, right? So we want to try to look at what happened to get us there, and in the moment, what can we do to get some of that energy, to process that energy. And the best thing that you can do is to move the body and get some of that out, right? So with my son, when he would start to punch, we would give him a pillow and we would give him a drum and we would redirect him to punch something, because that punching was serving a purpose for his nervous system. His nervous system was overwhelmed and it needed to get that out.
Yeah.
And it's not personal. He wasn't doing it because he's a bad kid and because he wanted to hurt you or he wanted to hit anyone. They're just overwhelmed and they don't have the same, like, I mean, they're kids, and most kids don't have the ability to be like, why do I feel this feeling and how can I deconstruct it? It's, I just need to get it out of my body. And physically hitting is almost as instinctual as you can get, right? Fight or flight. So it's just an automatic kind of boom. So trying to be able to be like, okay, well, what is contributing to the sensory overload? Is he watching iPads? Is he getting a lot of visual stimuli? Is he getting a lot of audio stuff? Is there a new smell in here? Is there a new thing in the routine? Is there a new food? Like what is adding to this load? And upping the physical, like, so that we can bring it down the ladder, right?
Yeah.
So
and there's a line where they lose control.
Yes.
And like you say, they're not in the present.
Right, it's the prefrontal cortex, I think, actually just
it shuts down.
Yeah.
So they're less or not aware of what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
Even though they're physically doing it.
Yes.
Yeah. When somebody, even if you understand why, has physically hit you,
your nervous system is gonna
we have a natural
absolutely
reaction.
And it's our job to, because we're the ones who can be able to rationalize it a bit more, like, oh, I'm feeling that anger and I need to get out, do something to whatever, because it's very easy to yell, scream, because that's our body trying to regulate to the situation, right? But it doesn't matter if you understand it or not. When someone punches you in the face or is scratching with you, and this is someone you love that you do everything for, it's going to hurt you. You're going to have that instinctual response, but it's okay. So I know that this is, like, I can feel that in my body. So what can I do to regulate myself?
Let's explain the qualities that you brought to his, like, early life. That you felt was really important for his nervous system to feel safe.
I didn't get play right at first. That wasn't one of my strengths.
Okay.
Because I didn't have the capacity for it. And that always made me feel sort of like, I'm a very nurturing person, and I had that, and he certainly had lots of nurturing and love and comfort and safety, but the play was hard for me to access, and it's because I didn't have access to it at that point. And when I went through SSP on my own, that was one of the first things that I noticed was, and again, it took some time, right? Oh, I don't think it's doing anything. And being able to be present and, reading him a story and actually making voices and being silly and reading the story with him instead of just reading the words, and in my mind going through, okay, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to call that and this for work and that for work. And so I didn't have access to that. So that's come I mean, he's taught me so much, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
and so that's come later, and we've seen, and now we do a lot of play-based, and thank goodness we had a lot of therapists that were, occupational therapists, speech therapists that have all been play-based as well. So
as an adult or a carer, you need to be really aware of your own system, going back to that again, and how do we maintain that like ventral vagal state. And knowing that we were going to do this talk, I was like being observant of myself. It's like, how am I co-regulating? And I noticed how much I was in seriousness. It's like flat face, Dr. Porges talks about how our face, and so it's just like, smile.
Yes.
Smile is so valuable.
Yeah.
Like an authentic smile.
Yeah.
Again, it helps us.
Yeah.
And it helps anybody we're
yes.
interacting with.
And isn't it so interesting when you learn about co-regulation? So many of these things that we instinctively knew, like, oh, if you walk by someone and they smile, it makes you feel good. You don't really know why, but when you start to learn about co-regulation, it's like, oh, it's like when you're maybe at a family gathering and somebody walks in a room and they're just, and you feel that. We all feel that, like, oh, they're angry, or they're, really stressed, and then our body reacts to that. But it's so subtle sometimes, or it's so normal because you're around it all the time, or that's all you've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that it is literally our nervous systems communicating with each other.
And, there's so much.
And it's this check-in for me anyway of, is this my nervous system or is this someone else's? Like, am I actually anxious right now, or am I reacting to someone else in my environment? Because it's, and then the check of, okay, what am I bringing? Like, sitting down and playing with my son right now. What am I bringing? I can't be sitting here worrying about, work or this or that, because it's going to completely affect, one, my presence to be there with him, and then his feeling of safety. So.
Yeah.
So often I think that parents don't want to portray any kind of negative emotion in front of their kids, right? Everything's fine. Like we were saying, everything's fine. Everything is okay. But they pick up on that, right? They're picking up on, well, does that mean that I'm not okay to express my emotions then? And that it's not safe, right? It's not safe to feel sad, or it's not safe to feel angry, or so similarly, like if I'm crying or upset, I'll say, yeah, Mom, and Sam will say, like, sad, and we'll come up, and he's very, in tune with that kind of thing. I'll say, yeah, I am sad, and it's okay for me to be sad. Sometimes we feel sad, sometimes we feel happy. It's just a normal feeling. And same thing, it's not like he's like, wow, Mom, great life lesson, but it's just with the hope of, like, giving him permission to then express his feelings, and not ever think of, oh, I feel sad, but I can't actually say it because I want to try to, like, regulate other people's emotions and make them feel good, right? Which is such an easy thing to do.
Yeah. And I think that's the lesson I think the autistic people give, is that they don't become those people pleasers.
Yes, yeah.
It's like almost the opposite of,
they don't
like,
care. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I know. It is straight, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's real, and I think that's why they end up being such great teachers in a way.
Yeah. Stimming is a way that they can regulate their nervous systems.
Yeah.
With my son, it's arm flapping,
Okay.
right? And it varies in degrees. Like, sometimes he's done it all the time, sometimes he doesn't do it. And I understand that that might look unusual to some people. But we all stim. It's just we try to hide it more because we think that it looks weird and we don't want people to think strange things of us, right? So maybe you bite your nails, maybe you chew on a pen, maybe you twirl your hair, maybe you shake your leg while you're sitting at a meeting. These are all physical things that we're unconsciously doing to try to regulate our nervous system that is dysregulated in that moment. It's just bigger with our kiddos because they're often more dysregulated because they have so much sensory information coming in. And I was at my son's school for a presentation, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. And my nervous system was activated. It's the fluorescent lights and big gymnasium, lots of people. And I found my body was just really like, and I thought, I would really love to get up and walk right now. I would love to just walk around this gymnasium. That would make my body feel so much better.
Yeah.
And my brain went, everybody's going to think that's really weird, right? If you just get up in the middle of a presentation. And so I didn't. And I thought at that moment, what if we lived in a world where that was okay? Where we were in a meeting and we just got up and moved. Or, if I'm on the telephone, I'm usually pacing because it makes my body feel good, right? If I have any kind of sympathetic activation, moving my body feel. Even I was done talking, right? My hands. We do that. This is a way that our bodies naturally do it, right? Just shaking. And so it's, if a therapy is trying to take that away from our kiddos who need it more, I don't think that's helpful, because it's going to cause them, from a nervous system standpoint, more dysregulation and then shutdown. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say shutdown.
And I think, it's, I don't know your experience with the people that you've worked with, but if we, using things like SSP, right? If we're giving our nervous system more capacity and better regulation abilities, we don't need to stim as much, so focusing more on like a safety approach instead of focusing on fixing the symptom. If we can work at not fixing, but addressing, strengthening the body's ability to regulate in the first place, right? Because a body that feels safer and that is able to regulate easier isn't going to, they don't need to get up and do all the things all the time. Because I always think we have our capacity building things and our things for strengthening vagal tone and then our processing tools. And I think that both of those together are what help us to really have regulated kids and for ourselves too. And so the processing things are more our physical activities, right? And depending on the capacity of the child and their age, and with adults too, it's a matter of can we help them identify what state they're in? So, yes, we are using words like dorsal and ventral and sympathetic, but with kids, I always say, do you feel like a bear? Do you feel like a bunny? Do you feel like a possum? Or do you feel like a golden retriever? And then we explain what all of that means, right? Yeah. If you're a bear, you just feel angry and hot and you just want to hit something or yell. If you're a bunny, you just feel like you want to run. Your body wants to move really fast. If you feel like a possum, you just want to stay very, very still, maybe sleep and maybe go to bed and put a blanket over your head. And with your golden retriever, you just feel like, yeah, this is good. I'm happy to be here. Let's play. Yeah.
Let's play, or I can sleep. I don't mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And so being able to identify what animal they feel like in the moment, and then having a list of exercises that they can do. So if I feel like I'm a bear, I know that I can growl. I know that I can go and punch a pillow, or I can go take one of my stuffed animals and throw it, in a safe way. Teaching them that it's okay to express anger, we need to, but also we want to do that in our own room and make sure that we're safe and that we're not doing it to other people, right? If we feel like a bunny, running around or pacing around or doing some jumping jacks, or if they can't do something physically, making a woo, saying that really loud, instead of the growl. If they feel like a possum, wrapping a blanket around, we call it a little burrito, making ourselves into a burrito, doing a little bit of swaying, right? And so giving them a few, like one or two things that work for them, and practicing them and showing them, and then trying to get them to identify, like, oh, instead of just like, we're so quick to feel what's going on in our body, if we can be like, oh, this is what's going on. I'm actually having a fight response. I'm having a flight response. This is what I can do about it. And then we can complete the arousal cycle, and then take our deep breaths, do any kind of coping, like, I'm safe, I'm okay, statements. But we often miss that processing step because we've been told that, like, we are supposed to just take deep breaths and be like, I'm safe and I'm okay. But we get there. We just need to do the other stuff first.
Like working with the body.
Exactly.
And movement and sound and so on.
Yeah. The processing, always thinking about, like, if this was an animal in the wild, would they be doing this? Like, if the cheetah, the antelope just saw the cheetah, is it going to take a deep breath and be like, I'm okay, I'm at peace with the world, and like all these things that we're being told, like saying affirmations and stuff. And it's, well, first it's going to run.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be like, okay, then we return to homeostasis, right? The arousal cycle is the stimulus, then the processing, and then the homeostasis afterwards.
So Dr. Porges created the Safe and Sound protocol, which I think is just an awesome name.
Yeah.
Because he's using sound
yeah.
to create a feeling of safety.
Right.
And that feeling of safety is he's stimulating the vagus nerve through the cranial nerves in the ear. So as he described it, there's various ways in to work with the vagus nerve, which you've explored some others as well. But the ear is one of those portals to, and we say stimulate the vagus nerve, which is making its effect stronger. And the vagus nerve is the one that signals to our brain and our body and all our systems being relaxed but alert. Yeah,
and naturally took out like the lower frequency sounds, and so that our ears are kind of, I always say it's like a little bit of a workout for your ears, right? Because the higher frequency sounds affect the middle ear muscles, and so they kind of pull back on the eardrum, and for lack of a better term, or a more scientific term, it kind of tunes your ears to be able to safety, to the sound of voice, the sound of safety, right? Whereas when we talked about when we get stuck in dorsal, the eardrum is more like of a concave. It's more flaccid, I think is the term that he uses about, it's more tuned in to pick up sounds of danger. And then we create this feedback loop between the brain and the body of looking for danger and only hearing danger, right?
Yeah. I have to say the delivery system is really cool.
Yeah.
You do it remotely?
Yes. Everything's remote.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that. I kind of trained during that COVID time.
Yes, yeah.
And so they'd boosted their online version, or their remote delivery version. And the little app, and
it's really
the fact
handy.
that you can do it at home is really awesome.
Yeah.
Although there's not so much watching what's going on, like you're not able to observe. I don't do you video during the sessions?
Usually the first session, depending on the client. With my kiddos, not as much. Because the parents are there. We do an hour beforehand where we talk about what to look out for. I have a little, guidebook and stuff, and exercises afterwards. And then depending on the age of the child, we talk about like what they might feel in their body.
And actually, this is one thing I like about the listening program, is that it's relatively passive thing to do.
Yeah.
In that they can just listen to music.
Yeah.
And it's having an influence on the nervous system.
Yeah, and the simplicity of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because not every kid is going to be at the place yet where they can, take direction and implement some exercises. And whether it's an adult or a child, again, if we're in dorsal, a lot of the time we don't have the capacity to do much, right? Learning new techniques and then implementing them. How many people say, like, I know I should be doing the right thing, I know I should be doing this exercise or that exercise, but they just can't, right?
Yeah.
Because their nervous system is trying to keep them safe. And so that feels like too much of a change. Whereas listening to music for a couple of minutes is something that most people can at least get to, right?
And also shutdown really kind of speaks to demand avoidance. Like you say, that sort of inability to motivate yourself to help yourself because you're in shutdown and you're in freeze.
And everything would feel like I know they use the word of like loss of autonomy, but like an attack almost, right? Like there's such a need to not change anything or have too many demands because that feels unsafe.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, all these labels, I think they're not really a thing. They're they're a good description to make you explore, like why, and so what are the effects or what have you seen in response to people doing the safe and sound protocol? Everyone is different. I realize that.
Very different.
Yeah. In general, and what has been your best case? And have you had no changes at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
To all of you. I have had people that have said that there is no change, both adults and children. It's again, I think of my first experience and where I thought there was no changes or very little change, and sometimes it's just we're not seeing it. And again, this foundation of is just being laid of like, oh, I'm able to hear a little bit differently yet, but I'm not quite ready to speak, or there's something else that's going on contributing to it, but a little bit more awareness. Like some of the changes can be really, really subtle. With our adult stuff, it usually means that something else is going on too. So for example, if you are experiencing a lot of anxiety and this does nothing for that, often the anxiety is related to like hormones, or there's something else biochemically that's contributing to it. And with our kids with autism, I mean, we know that a lot of them have gut issues and things like candida overgrowth and histamine issues and oxalate issues and these other things that can play a role in all of it too, right?
What's the most dramatic effect, positive wise?
It was my son.
Your son? Yeah. Just suddenly
spontaneous speech. I mean, it felt like a miracle. Like it was, we'd gotten to that point where it was like, well, he might speak, he might not speak. But yeah, it was awesome. In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks of the second time.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we did it twice as well.
Yeah. And the other thing that we noticed, the biggest notice I've seen is noticing people.
Okay.
Like just being like at the store and looking at someone, or walking on a path and saying hi to someone else.
Interacting.
When there was none of that. No, like even with us, it's like his world and then our world. And sometimes, if we can get into his world, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And occasionally he pops into our world, but then it was like, oh, there is this world too. And starting to notice that.
Like what?
Blood sugar.
Yes.
So low blood sugar triggers the stress response.
Of course.
It dysregulates you, right?
Yeah.
It's and I mean, so the way that kind of our modern day diet is 80% of foods have added sugars to them. So even things that you wouldn't think of, like pasta sauce and yogurts and salad dressing and stuff. And so our kiddos are, more prone to, when we think about blood sugar, we want to kind of have this wave, and we're more prone to these roller coasters where we have low blood sugar and our body will then go, release a bunch of adrenaline, we have a stress response, and that is dysregulating. And so if that's happening several times, and it can be dozens of times a day, if you're drinking lots of like pops and things with high sugars, and that's not a judgment, it's just how the body responds to sugar, that alone can be dysregulating with a stress response. So if I was walking my dog and then saw this dog running towards me, I would have a stress response and my blood sugar would go up. Even though I didn't eat anything at all, it would still go up, but then it would come down.
Yeah.
And so if you're eating healthy, but you're really stressed all the time and you're having these thoughts, your blood sugar is still going to go up and down, and your body's still going to dump out insulin to try to bring it down. And then we have low blood sugar. And then with low blood sugar, again,
I think the low blood sugar is the hangry.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Irritability, dizziness, cold sweats, like so many things that feel like anxiety, angriness. Some people get dizzy, heart palpitations. It can really cause a lot in the body. And then as a defense mechanism, our body goes, oh, better release some adrenaline, and then my blood sugar will go up again and keep us safe. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to say, that's always been my challenge. It's like, if I could just leave her how she is, we would all be like so happy.
Yeah.
It's like and that conflict between, I want to help her increase her functioning and ability, and at the same time I want to just accept her exactly how she is.
100%, yeah.
And this has always been a conflict for me, and I would like you to
honor you and all, because she's probably, not to assume, but so many of these kiddos they're just happy. Like they don't, my son, there will be times where I get so worried about the future and what's that going to look like. And it's like, he's on the trajectory he's on right now. It doesn't right now, like going to school, having a job, that's not the path he's on right now. I mean, that could change. Who knows? But, as a parent, you worry and think like, oh, but he's happy. He is so happy. That is completely my own stuff, my own interpretation of what life should look like, it's such a good lesson to us. And it makes us examine, like, what is life really then? Because all the things that you want for him, and you think that your children are going to have before you get this diagnosis and kind of go down this path. It's like, well, none of that is the same anymore. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just, this is what we have determined is what a successful life is. And it's like, well, now he's teaching me that, like, he's the happiest kid I know. He's probably the happiest person I know. And it's like, here I am, like, in the middle of the night being like, what is this life going to look like? And getting stressed out when it's like, he's good,
I know. And same thing with
dinosaurs in a bowl of water. But then if you really, like, look at play and love and, all these, what life really is, they got it all. We're the ones that have to change our outlook.
And just that philosophy, really, isn't it? Like sense of safety for them.
Sense of okayness. Safety is the answer. Safety is the key. And I remember reading that for the first time and not understanding that at all.
Yes.
Like,
it takes a while to,
like, what do you, like, well, like, it's just so easy.
I know.
Because what we define as safety is different than, like, felt safety, right? Like, where it's like, you can be physically safe in a room. Like right now we are safe. There's no one trying to get in. There's no tiger. There's no storm or anything. But in the body, it would be very easily to still not feel safe in the body, right? And so understanding that and, like, how to get to a place of safety, that was like, oh, that's what he meant.
I know. And Dr. Porges would call it the felt sense of safety.
Right, yes.
And Gabor Mate says safety is not about lack of threat, it's a feeling of connection. And I paraphrase that a bit wrong, and I'll put it up in its proper words.
We won't tell him.